The capital city of Ouagadougou had rarely known such silence. Dawn was still fresh, the markets unopened. The streets still washed in a bluish-grey light. President Ibrahim Traoré's armoured vehicle rolled down the boulevard, the hum of its engine echoing off shuttered storefronts. He had travelled without a grand convoy today, hoping to project an image of calm strength and quiet authority. But as soon as the president stepped out, silence shattered. The first crack of gunfire split the morning air, followed by a chorus of automatic rifles. Windows trembled. A dog barked in panic. The city, still half asleep, was suddenly thrust into chaos. For the guards, training collided with instinct. They threw themselves around the president, forming a human wall of flesh and armor. Bullets sparked against the side of the vehicle. One soldier shouted for reinforcements over his radio while another dragged the president down behind the thick steel of the armored door. But Traoré did not flinch. Witnesses later whispered about his unnerving calm, how his eyes seemed locked not on the chaos but on something far away, as if measuring time itself. "Stay low," one of his guards begged. But the president stood tall for a heartbeat longer, scanning the rooftops. From the north side of the street, 3 masked gunmen advanced. Their movements were precise, disciplined, not the erratic behavior of desperate attackers. Whoever planned this knew the president's route, his timing, his vulnerability. "Return fire," Traoré ordered, his voice low but unshaken. His guards obeyed instantly, their rifles roaring back against the ambush. Sparks and smoke filled the boulevard, shattering glass, and sending terrified residents ducking under tables and beds. The president finally crouched, but not out of fear. He leaned into his radio and demanded updates from other units. His tone betrayed no panic, no desperation. Later, a soldier would confess, "We didn't fight because of training. We fought because he looked at us as if fear was forbidden." The attack lasted less than 4 minutes. The gunmen melted back into the labyrinth of Ouagadougou's narrow alleys. 3 soldiers lay injured, 1 fatally. The president was unhurt. But the deeper wound was invisible: betrayal. That morning, the president's inner circle convened in a heavily guarded government compound. Reports confirmed what he already suspected. The attackers had inside information. They knew his reduced convoy schedule. They knew where his vehicle would stop. Eyes turned toward those closest to him: ministers, military commanders, advisors. Each face was carefully composed, each oath of loyalty spoken with trembling conviction. But behind those masks, suspicion festered. Rather than launch a loud purge, Traoré chose silence. He ordered a quiet investigation, small teams working in shadows, tracing phone calls, examining bank accounts, interrogating without headlines. Weeks passed. The city returned to its rhythm. But tension pulsed under its surface. Rumors spread in the markets. It was a coup attempt. Others whispered, "Foreign hands are behind it." Still others muttered, "No, it was his own people." The truth that investigators uncovered was darker still. A high-ranking aide, long trusted, had met in secret with disaffected officers. Promises were made: wealth, power, protection. All they had to do was remove the man who stood in their way. This revelation exposed more than a plot. It exposed fractures within the very foundation of the government. Not everyone welcomed the president's reforms. His insistence on sovereignty, his refusal to bow to external influence, his focus on military strength over diplomatic appeasement. These choices created enemies both at home and abroad. For the president, survival was no longer just physical. It was political, ideological, existential. The gunfire on the boulevard was not simply an assassination attempt. It was the visible face of an invisible war being waged behind closed doors. Traoré gathered his cabinet in a midnight session. No cameras, no reporters, just the dim glow of lamps and the weight of betrayal in the air. "I was not chosen to live quietly in safety," he told them. "I was chosen to stand when others would kneel. Those who betrayed us will face justice. Those who remain will build with me. Choose tonight where you stand." His words cut through the silence. Some ministers avoided his gaze. Others nodded with renewed loyalty. A few, perhaps guilty, perhaps simply afraid, resigned within days. When whispers of the attack reached the public, anger ignited. Crowds filled the streets, not in fear but in defiance. They carried flags, shouted slogans, demanded justice. For them, the attempt on the president's life was not just an attack on a man. It was an attack on their fragile hope for stability. Women laid flowers at the boulevard where the first shots rang out. Children painted murals of the president standing tall against bullets. For a nation weary of coups and chaos, his survival symbolized resilience. The quiet investigation concluded with arrests, names the public never expected. Betrayal had indeed come from within. Yet the president chose not to execute his rivals in public squares or parade them before cameras. Instead, he doubled security, reshuffled his inner circle, and pressed forward with reforms. Historians may one day argue whether that morning's gunfire was a failed coup, a desperate power play, or something even more dangerous, a warning of greater storms to come. But for the people of Burkina Faso, one truth echoed louder than all speculation. Their president had walked through fire and emerged unbroken. The morning that began in silence and gunfire ended as the beginning of a new chapter, not just for Ibrahim Traoré, but for an entire nation searching for its destiny.